welcome everybody to the Network Deployment Working Group meeting for Thursday, December 17th, 2020. Doug, do we have regular business?
We have a couple of quick items of regular business. There are two maintainer candidates here. They're both Red Hatters for the SROV network operator, Sebastian Schenkman and Federico Paolini. Let's see, I'm just taking a look at the list here, and I believe that we should have quorum. Does anyone have any objections? All right, in that case, they are accepted. And otherwise, there was a pull request. Was that from you, Adrian? I believe it was, for a couple NVIDIA members to be added to the. Yeah, thank you for getting that. I'm sorry I forgot you guys on my last round, so I just merged it this morning. So thank you.
Right, thanks. So it just aligns with what currently is in the in the state of the repo. So we are already involved there.
Awesome. All right, cool. I guess I got half of it. So anyways, happy to see you guys on there. Thanks for double checking that.
Which reminds me, everybody, please add your attendance to the attendees at the top of the agenda. I will paste the agenda doc into the Zoom chat if you don't happen to have that handy. That is how we track attendance for purposes of voting and membership and such. Thanks.
Awesome. And I believe that concludes our regular business. I've got one item on the agenda. I'm a little disappointed that we don't have Martin Kennelly from Intel today. I know this time of year is sometimes difficult to get everyone together, but during the Multis maintainers meeting last week, Tomo, Martin, and I had a pretty good conversation about service abstraction. And the thing that really brought it up is we were talking about dynamic attachments for Multis and that architecture. And, Martin was excited about the possibilities that might open up. And while it may be another process, another controller that actually performs this, it was good to get that conversation going a bit. And I was kind of hoping that we could spend some more time as a bigger group to cover that and to help align Martin with some of the work that Tomo and Peter have done along these lines. So anyways, I added some raw notes from our maintainers meeting just to help go there. Without Martin's input, I'm a little bit at a loss of where to start here, but I might ask for Tomo if you want to kick this off a little bit. Another thing is, I believe, I guess one kind of the state of affairs here, as far as I understand it, is that Tomo's previous prototype was using endpoint controller, but we've moved on to endpoint slices. And so that's kind of the next detent point in this proof of concept, is to get endpoint slices. Tell me, you want to take it over from here?
Yeah. So previously I did the POC. At that time, I modified the upstream Kubernetes code to modifying the endpoint to adding the modus interface IP address. So, and then now I'm also the prototyping of the next version. I mean that they are separate from the Kubernetes upstream, implementing the endpoint controller. And then this is actually the endpoint controller. And then now the upstream is moved to use endpoint thrice instead of the endpoints. So my code needs to be changed a little bit. And then also to implement I'm also thinking about to implement the service abstraction stuff. I'm going to utilize the IP tables as most network policy does. So at that time, we need the some component which manipulate IP tables to implement the service abstraction. So that this is the pretty missing stuff. Then I have the planning and the architecture stuff. So, but also I don't have the time yet. So that is the my to do. But before that, now I'm working on the modes network policy stuff. So the service abstraction priority is next on the modes network policy. That's the what we talked about in the modes maintenance meeting.
Tomo, thanks for clearing that up for sure.
Welcome.
Does anyone have any further questions, thoughts?
Is the possible plan of doing selectors on multiple IP addresses still valid or still a possibility? I know we discussed that in the past. I kind of lost track of whether that was valid or still workable or not. The idea there is that we have with dual stack, we have the capability for multiple IPs. We had made sure that that was extensible so that we might be able to add fields to it in the future. There are a couple of issues with it right now that we're trying to work out in SIG Network, but maybe that's still a possibility.
Dan, one question. So you mean that multiple IP means the one IP address from the primary interface and then the another things is the modus?
Yeah, the general thought there was that right now the API server restricts pod IPs to 2. One has to be v4 and the other one has to be v6. But that's an artificial restriction.
So then with v6, right? If someone's sending out the router advertisement, it can be for many L3s over the same L2s. You will get many addresses if they sell form.
Yep.
So with v6, it's
right.
I mean, you can put 10 different L3s on the same L2, and then you, depending on how the advertisement is set up, you will force us on some of them and on some not.
Yeah, the general thought here for the future was that we could try to get labels on each IP address in pod status pod IPs. And that would be conveyed from CNI into the runtime, and then the runtime would just send those labels back up to Cube, which then posts the API server. And so one option there was that if each of the IPs had labels, you could, for example, set the label to be like the network attachment definition name or something like that. And then you could have services that had a pod IP selector, and that service would say, I only want to select endpoints that have network name equals foobar.
So just to be sure, I understand. So that would mean that CNI would have to contain something like how we have what we call pod agent, like that actively listen on what happens, because a new prefix can be added to a network at any point.
Yes.
So the network assignment or address change, assignment or change could happen at any time during the pod's lifetime, which then sort of, I mean, we decided in Kaloom then that the address assignment has to be taken out of the immutable part, that they are mutable. They can change during the pod's lifetime.
Yeah, I think there are a lot of conversations that are going on that would enable this, and it's one of those things that's going to take a little bit of time, but we're moving in a couple of parallel streams on it. This would be one way to maybe do it in a Cube native sort of way that might even allow us to do it in the normal Kubernetes endpoints controller, as opposed to having to write a bunch of other code to do it too. But you're very right that we'd need to add some kind of, I mean, at least for v6, dynamism to the network plugin API.
Or it could be DHCP v4, right? If someone runs
Yes,
that on the
technically,
network.
yes.
So I started doing some slides that I sort of showed with to Azar when I have discussions with them. They're not ready, but I should be able to. They're not sort of completely detailed and talk about CNI. It's more like how do we deal with the orchestration and sort of what are the needs for VRFs and how do we handle all that. I should be able to go, I think, present them in this forum sometime towards the end of January, if you're interested.
Yeah, definitely.
Or we can do it just sort of as part of the Red Hat collaboration we have.
+1, I'd love to see him in this forum.
Yep.
Because it definitely contains active agents.
Yeah, I mean, the other parallel streams we have going on are investigations into how to do dynamic attachments with like an implementation like Multis or Cactus or something else like that. If we have that, another part of the puzzle would be in the short term CNI check, and if plugins implement CNI check. Well, actually, okay, that's not going to work.
I also looked at sort of different ways. If you start using VRFs in a container or inside a pod, what are the alternatives? And so how are the different ways of doing this? And one way, and actually it's the one I don't really like, requires change to the kubelet, but there are other ways to sort of have some sort of, call it a trampoline that starts different containers or having different default VRFs. And sort of some scheme to have ETH0 being able to use a normal loopback, the container that runs there, and then use IPv6 when talking to other containers that have different VRFs, and being able then to describe when you start a container inside a pod, saying which VRFs it sort of should have as its default and so on. Because otherwise, I don't see how anyone can write a Go-based container and do multi-VRF, and you try to use a library, because I mean you cannot specify anywhere which socket that should be used for an operation. If you do a dial, it will always tie into the default VRF and that routing table and so on. So I don't know if that's sort of is this group and because we're looking at networking, right? But we have been very focused on CNI because that was pretty much what networking was in Kubernetes. When you just have one interface, but when breaking out and sort of looking at multi-homing, VRFs and so on, it gets much wider. And I think we need to come up with some templates for how people can work in that environment, and maybe some libraries that makes it simpler for people. That's because we're doing it, and it's tricky.
Yep. I mean, I think we do have a ways to go to get things to be more dynamic, and like I said, there's work going on in a couple of areas to make that happen. I think it's encouraging because we kind of had a lull in that work for a while, but I think we're at the point where that stuff's getting pushed forward.
Yeah. No, I agree with you there.
Yeah.
What sort of, I don't know. I've worked most of my career with networking, and sort of what I've seen is that the problems that multi-homing brings, it looks easy, but it's not. And sort of to step in there, if we're really going to push for it, it's better to sort of be honest and say, try to avoid if you can, and sort of have the tools ready, so we don't get this that these things are available, and then people start pushing out containers or pods that just work in one system but doesn't work in another, and it's all based on sort of how routing is set up and how the platform underneath is set up, and I'm sort of very scared to give ammunition to people that is saying that there should only be one network.
Mhm.
Yeah. That's what I wanted to say, but I can present that towards the end of January.
Yeah, that'd be great. Looking forward to seeing that.
Yeah, thank you, Pear, big time.
One of the other things is, one of the other parallel efforts is to, I mean, again, move to the CNI to something like gRPC and allow, updates back of the IP information that would better handle something like IPv6 router advertisements.
Change name of it. At some point, change name of it, right?
Mm.
To, I don't know what, I mean, something more with the overall networking. And I like what you've done. I mean, I look at the OVN and sort of to not have to work with the kubelet and with the kube proxy anymore.
Mm-hmm.
A relief. At the same time, if everyone is going to do their own control component for Kubernetes, that's not good either. Then we're going to get such wide divergence depending on which network you're running inside.
Yeah, I mean, one of the other efforts is to try to figure out upstream in Kubernetes what a more comprehensive networking API would look like, and that might also mean that we could share components more easily.
I had one proposal. I said that you can say that it could be a shared control component, but an easy way to fill in with sort of your own data plane components, because those can be different.
Mm-hmm.
I do think that there's a possibility to share overall the top level component, and of course that one needs to be generic. Then it shouldn't care if you're using NAT or not when you deliver.
I believe that's all that I had on here. I really was just looking to kick off the conversation a little bit and keep this rolling. Thanks, Dan and Pear. I got a bunch of notes from you guys. Feel free to take a look and correct them. They're terse in parts, but
then I'll send you a mail. Maybe we should have an offline discussion. Are you working anything during the holidays, or you're 2 weeks off now, or?
I'm off for a bit, and I suspect a lot of Red Hatters are as well.
So you're back around the 10th or something like that?
I'm back on the 4th.
Okay, cool.
But yeah, we've got a meeting that this group has a canceled meeting on the 31st, since we assume a lot of people are going to be out.
Yes.
And then our next meeting would be the 14th after that. So I think most people will probably be back by the 14th.
Sounds good.
All right. Do we have any more discussion on service abstraction or anything like that?
Yeah, Doug just kind of posted that he thinks he lost audio, so he kind of interrupted Pear middle of a sentence. I don't know if Pear finished his sentence or was kind of done.
I'm good. I'm fine.
Okay, just making sure.
Yeah.
All right. In that case, unless Doug somehow comes back, do we have anything else to discuss today? Going once? Going twice? Doug's probably screaming into the void.
I'm good. Happy holidays, and catch you all in the new year. Happy New Year for sure.
Yeah.
All right.
Yep.
Likewise. Take care, guys.
Take care.
All right,
Bye.
take it
Yep.
Holidays.
Talk to y'all
Bye.
next year.
Yep.
Bye-bye.
See you next year.
Bye.
Happy holidays.